Hello. Our daughter Khrizma recently underwent the new assessment process. In spite of the ONA being created and monitored under federal lawsuit, and in spite of our assessor and her supervisor supposedly receiving comprehensive training on how to conduct an assessment interview and accurately score the ONA, Khrizma's ONA scoring process utterly failed her by containing 36 pages of serious errors, contradictions, and discrepancies. We are not complaining about one or two minor errors, misunderstandings, or differences in the level of scoring. Our concern is about the extent and number of errors contained within Khrizma'S ONA, which put her at risk. Families are doing their best to try and trust the new ONA process, but this massive failure has destroyed our faith in the ONA process and left us extremely upset, emotionally depleted, and strongly motivated to make DRO aware of what happened so that it can make important changes before the federal lawsuit is finalized. In spite of a trained ONA assessor and our daughter's caseworker, who had recently been promoted to the position of assessor supervisor, who stated that he had personally reviewed the ONA for accuracy prior to its submission, Khrizma'S ONA contained numerous errors which put her at risk. Without our family and the employer of record reviewing the ONA results and requesting that changes be made before we could sign our daughter's ISP, those errors would have been part of our daughter's unofficial record, whether or not they changed the hours in her plan right now. More than one thing went wrong in order for our daughter's ONA process to fail to this degree. How could our daughter's new ONA depict her as someone with an entirely different level of functioning than her previous 2018 assessment? This is a question that we hope DRO will investigate and answer for us. We feel that one of the primary reasons for this failure is that the assessor used our daughter's documentation to answer the majority of the assessment questions prior to the assessment interview. So we were not asked all of the assessment questions face-to-face. Our caseworker / assessor supervisor made it very clear to us at the beginning of the assessment interview that the assessor had reviewed all of Khrizma'S documentation in advance and had already answered and completed the majority of the questions on the ONA. We were told that the assessor only had a few areas where she needed clarification, and so we were going to be asked only those questions. In addition, Khrizma'S caseworker, who is now the assessor supervisor, was present at the assessment interview and played a major role and was not a silent observer. The caseworker / assessor supervisor controlled the meeting from beginning to end and allowed the assessor to ask some clarifying questions in a few areas that she wasn't clear on after completing the document review. The caseworker tracked our answers and information on his own computer, clarified questions in more detail for us when the assessor asked a question that we were not sure of, and halted us from talking at least 3 times when we tried to go into more detail about how our daughter performed a task, etc., telling us that that information had already been answered for us in the document review. We have since learned that the document review was inappropriately used in our daughter's assessment because it literally replaced our right to be asked all of the assessment questions. In other words, we were denied our legal right to speak our truth about Khrizma'S level of functioning and need, and her assessment was scored based on assumptions and misunderstandings and misinterpretations of what the assessor read in previous documents. A document review should never take the place of the face-to-face interview with the family, according to ONA guidelines. However, this is exactly what happened to us. We are fully aware that the ONA does not currently change the hours in an individual's plan, and that our daughter's funding cannot be reduced because of her recent ONA results. However, this does not mean that we should not alert people as to the errors we discovered, attempt to get the assessment corrected, or encourage DRO to make changes to the ONA guidelines in order to prevent these same errors from happening to another family. We are not motivated in the least by money when it comes to supporting our daughter or securing support services for her. We are not reacting strongly to these errors because we want our daughter's eventual ONA to result in additional hours of funding. Our strong reaction to approximately 36 pages of errors, contradictions, and discrepancies that appeared on her ONA is to prevent any document from containing false statements about our daughter, which would put her at risk, should she be in the care of others in the event of our death or incapacitation? We have taken DHS to hearing twice over false statements that appeared in our daughter's assessments and ISPs that caseworkers refused to correct, once in 2014 and also in 2017. Do we really need to go to hearing a third time? We thought the ONA was created to ensure that an individual would be accurately represented as a result of the new ONA. We have asked for and been granted a redo of our daughter's assessment by a new assessor due to the countless number of errors, contradictions, and discrepancies it contains, and that request has been granted. Excuse me. What follows are a series of short videos of our daughter performing certain tasks where the assessor and caseworker/assessor supervisor scored Khrizma as requiring maximal assistance when the correct score should have been dependent. These videos are part of the public domain. Therefore, DRO and anyone has full permission to use them as training tools for assessors, assessor supervisors, caseworkers, DHS, ODDS, or other attorneys or families who need to learn more about the correct definition of maximal assistance and dependent, and how to accurately score an individual who may fall into these two important categories. Before we can move on as a family and let go of this unbelievable nightmare, we need to accomplish 3 goals. We need to understand how a trained assessor, her supervisor, and caseworker who knew our daughter well could have created an ONA that contained numerous errors, contradictions, and discrepancies. Was it human error, misinterpretation of our face-to-face answers, lack of adequate training for the assessor and her supervisor, the fact that the assessor used documentation to answer the majority of the ONA questions for us instead of giving us the opportunity of answering each question ourselves? Or was it something much more serious? An attempt to score our daughter in a way that would save DHS money. We need to share our utterly failed ONA with DRO so that they can make important changes to the ONA guidelines before the federal lawsuit is finalized in order to protect the next family from this horror and risk. And number 3, we need to secure an accurate assessment of our daughter's level of functioning so that we can sign her ISP and prevent the need to go to hearing a third time. You can find the ONA manual online, and if you look on page 22, you will see the very clear definition of maximal assistance and dependent. It is important to keep these 2 definitions in mind as you watch Khrizma being asked to perform each task where we feel she was scored incorrectly. At the beginning of each video, you will be shown the score that the assessor and her supervisor agreed accurately defined Khrizma's ability to perform that task. At the end of the video, you decide whether you feel Khrizma was accurately scored as requiring maximal assistance or dependent based on the very clear definition of each of these terms in the ONA manual. Keep in mind that Khrizma's level of functioning at age 36, she'll be 37 in May, is that of a 2.5-year-old. And her IQ is 36. She has both Down syndrome and autism, is nonverbal, and requires sighted guide physical support when walking out of the home due to visual problems. You will also see listed our conclusion video. This video includes recommendations to DRO of the changes that we feel are important to make prior to the finalization of the lawsuit based on our experience with Khrizma's first ONA. Thank you.